Did you know that research shows early failures often lead to a greater long-term success? According to a study published by the National Academy of Sciences, those who face setbacks early in their careers are more likely to achieve high levels of success than those who experience early wins. This goes to show that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the journey. If you've ever felt held back by the fear of failure, you're not alone. Many people let that fear stop them from pursuing their goals. But what if failure wasn't something to fear at all? In this video, I'll show you how to look at failure in a new way. Keep watching. This video might change how you handle failure forever. Before we dive into the juicy stuff, we need to face the problem. Our deeply ingrained fear of failing. The failure paradox. From a young age, we are taught that failure is bad. Society keeps telling us to avoid mistakes, to always get things right, to play it safe. This makes us afraid to try new things because we don't want to mess up and look stupid. This fear of failure is ingrained in our minds, and it's entirely counterproductive to real success. We stay in the same place, afraid to fail. And the more we avoid failure, the more we hold ourselves back from real successes. If we never make mistakes, we never learn how to improve. So, how can we stop being afraid of failure and start using it to succeed? Well, for a start, we first need to understand the psychology of failure and fear. The psychology of failure and fear. Many people are paralyzed by the fear of failure. This fear stops them from taking risks or pursuing their goals because they are afraid of what others might think. Others are simply afraid of feeling like a failure themselves. Napoleon Hill, writer of the popular book Think and Grow Rich, talks about this in what he calls the triangle of fear. He breaks it down into three big fears that block our path to success: the fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, and the fear of ill health. The fear of poverty is the worry of not having enough. People are afraid that if they fail, they'll lose their money or security. Imagine you've always dreamed of starting your own bakery. You've got the recipes, the passion, and the vision, but the thought of losing your steady paycheck makes you second-guess everything. What if the business fails? What if you can't pay rent? Instead of going all in, you stick to your 9 to 5, telling yourself one day. But that day never comes because of the fear of poverty. Then there's the fear of criticism. Nobody likes being laughed at or judged, and sometimes that fear keeps us from doing what we really want. Let's say you're passionate about singing. You dream of sharing it with the world. But when it comes time to upload it, you hesitate. What if they don't like it? What if they think your voice is terrible? That fear of criticism makes you doubt your talent, so you keep them locked away. You miss out on the opportunity for feedback that could help you grow as a singer, all because of the fear of what others might say. And finally, there's the fear of ill health. Picture this. You've been thinking about going on a trek with friends to the mountains. You know it would be the experience of a lifetime, but you start to worry. What if you get too exhausted halfway up the mountain? What if the elevation makes you feel dizzy or sick? That fear of ill health keeps you from saying yes, even though you really want to go. Instead, you choose to stay behind, convincing yourself that it's safer. But by doing so, you miss out on a lot. Together, these three fears, the fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, and the fear of ill health, create a mental cage. But hold on. You see, these fears aren't as real as they seem. Imagine if, instead of letting them control you, you started looking back at failure as feedback. Each failure is like a step forward, not back. Don't let fears hold you back. You will open yourself up to a whole new world of possibilities. Moving on, let's talk about something different. Failure as a tool for growth, the growth mindset. Let's be real. For most of us, failure feels like a punch to the gut. It's not just a setback, it feels like a judgment on who we are what we are capable of. One mistake, and suddenly we start doubting everything. We tell ourselves, maybe I'm just not cut out for this. But here's where Carol Dweck's idea of the growth mindset comes in. A lot of people throw this term around, but what does it actually mean? Imagine this. Some people have what's called a fixed mindset. They believe they're either born with a talent or they're not. So when they stumble, they think it's a dead end. But then there are those with a growth mindset. For them, failure isn't a wall. It's a stepping stone. They fall down and they ask, what can I learn from this? They keep going. But this time, they're armed with new lessons, new insights. They get back up, a little wiser, a little stronger. This isn't just some motivational talk. It's a real-life mind shift in how you see yourself. It's about rewriting that voice in your head. Instead of saying, I'm terrible at this, start asking, what can I do better next time? Maybe you need to change your strategy, practice a bit more, or seek help. Whatever it is, failure isn't a verdict. It's feedback. Knowing that failure is a part of growth is one thing. Bouncing back from it is where true strength lies. So, let's explore how resilience and grit come into play. The power of resilience and grit. Listen, failing is not fun. I know how it feels. Like a hard blow to your confidence. Too embarrassed to get back up and try again. But Angela Duckworth talks about something called grit. Grit isn't about being the smartest or the most talented. It's about sticking with your goals, even when it feels impossible. Imagine failing, falling flat on your face, and then getting back up to try again. And again. And again. That's grit. Angela's research shows that the people who succeed in the long run aren't the ones who have it easy and pass in the first test. They're the ones who keep going, no matter how many times they get knocked down. Whether it's the 14th time or the 40th, they're willing to pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and keep moving forward. Grit is something you build over time. Think of grit like a muscle. Every time you face a challenge, and don't give up, you're making that muscle stronger. So each failure isn't just a setback, it's a chance to build your resilience. Overcoming the fear of criticism, a lesson from Napoleon Hill. Earlier in the video, we talked about the triangle of fear. One of the most common fears in this triangle is the fear of criticism. Many people hesitate to take risks or try new things because they fear judgment from others. Napoleon Hill identifies the fear of criticism as one of the greatest barriers to success. People are so worried about what others will think of their failures that they never take the bold steps needed to achieve their goals. But the truly successful people understand that criticism is a part of the journey, especially if you're doing something different. Think about it in this way. Anyone who has achieved something significant has faced criticism. Whether it's inventors, artists, or entrepreneurs, they face people who have scoffed at their dreams, laughed at their ideas, or flat out told them they wouldn't succeed. But what did they do? They pressed on because they knew that criticism doesn't define their worth. So how can you break free from this fear? Learn to take feedback constructively, and remember that others' opinions don't define your worth. Let go of the need for approval. Now let's talk about how to turn failure into a roadmap for success. It's one thing to know that failure can be valuable, but how do you actually use those tough experiences to move forward? Turning failure into a roadmap for success. Here's the challenge. A lot of us understand that failing isn't the end of the world, but it's hard to see how we can use those setbacks to succeed in the future. How do you go from falling down to getting back up stronger and smarter? This is where successful people stand out. They don't just brush off their mistakes and move on. Instead, they take a step back and reflect. What went wrong? What could I have done better? What will I change next time? By really digging into what happened, they turn each failure into a learning experience. It's like creating a blueprint for future success. Instead of letting mistakes defeat them, they use those lessons to come back even better prepared. So why don't you start doing the same? Start practicing self-reflection after every setback. Don't just shrug it off. Really think about what happened and why. What was within your control? What wasn't? The more honest you are with yourself, the more you can learn and grow. By systematically learning from your mistakes, you can build a stronger path forward. If you are still with me, here's some real talk. You are bound to fail someday, at some point in your life. One day, you will stumble. And when that moment comes, I hope you remember what we've talked about today. Fears can hold us back, but by adopting a growth mindset, building resilience, and seeing failure as a tool for growth, you can turn those setbacks into stepping stones towards your greater success. Now, it's your turn to talk. Share your experiences with overcoming failure or how you've dealt with criticism and fear in the comments below. And don't forget to check out our other videos on the channel about personal development and turning obstacles into opportunities. Let's keep growing together.